Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm a bit late to the party with some of these stories that I'm going to be covering over the next few days because I've been in the UK. Back now, so a lot seems to have been happening in women's sports, the same old issues, and it's very concerning that this is still going on and it doesn't seem to be letting up. Why are we still dealing with this after we've seen how ridiculous the situation with Leah Thomas was? Why are we still seeing trans athletes in NCAA swimming who are seeing the hustle, a great way to get into the locker room, a great way to become a somebody in sports when you were previously a nobody, a great way to break records and have records attributed to you that women have worked hard to break for decades, that women have worked hard to achieve for decades from the very beginning. Mel comes along and breaks that record. And that's what we're seeing again. We've got another Leah Thomas, Leah 2.0, not the one who the women successfully blocked from joining their team over in Roanoke County. Not that one. That person decided against joining a team that didn't want him to join, essentially. So that person was still doing reasonably well, competing against males. So maybe the person decided that it wasn't worth the bother and they can just continue competing against males, who knows. But when it comes to somebody who is less than mediocre, now all of a sudden being number one, now all of a sudden being a record holder, you can't tell me that this isn't an incentive to identify as a woman and dominate. You can't tell me that that's not an incentive. And you can't tell me that it's right and fair. And you can't tell me that this is advancing women's sports. This is destroying women's sports. But I think we're going to start seeing, women's teams become smaller and smaller as more and more of them turn away from a sport that they have worked hard to become successful in. And that's a tragedy. And NCAA and other organizations such as them are allowing this, are enabling this. As far as I'm concerned, they're not for women. They're kind of showing a hatred towards women, if you ask me, in my opinion. So take a look.
Ramapo College in New Jersey getting a lot of backlash after they congratulated a transgender swimmer for breaking the women's 100-yard butterfly record. That post has since been deleted. A spokesman for the college said the school will continue to support all of their student athletes, adding that the post was, quote, deleted by a peer who wanted to protect their teammate from insulting comments on the post. Here's another example of this, Brian. I mean, this just cannot be right, can it?
No, it isn't. And it's called, this swimmer, when she was a man, swam for the men's team, average at best, decides to become a woman, and celebrate the fact that she set a butterfly record. For me, I want to know who came in fourth. And for now on, every time a man comes in a race, I don't want to see the top three. I want to see the top four. I want to see four people get medals. And then you leave these records, put an asterisk.
And the woman who came second has to just accept it, or she's a bigot. The woman who came fourth and missed out on getting a medal has to just accept it, or she's a bigot. The rightful winner doesn't get the acknowledgement that they deserve because they want to appease a biological male who decides he wants to identify as a woman and dominate women's swimming. And apparently there are biological males who couldn't do that in their own right while competing against other males who now want to take what rightfully belongs to a woman and earn money for themselves and earn a name for themselves and accolades and scholarships, everything they couldn't achieve as a man. Now again, I feel like a broken record. I've been saying this over and over because this keeps on happening. But international swimming doesn't allow this. International swimming, when it comes to world championships, when it comes to Olympic swimming, they're not allowing this. So we know they introduced the third category, an open category, and no one showed up. Because it's not about participation, it's not about inclusion, it's about taking what belongs to women. And they don't believe that the open category has the same status as the women's category or the men's category. They don't believe the open category has the same status, so they don't want it. So it's not about participation. They can race each other and go on to achieve what they want to achieve as a transgender athlete. But that's not good enough. They want to achieve everything as a woman, as a female, which is something they're not.
The first races for transgender swimmers have been scrapped after no entries were received. It was supposed to take place at the World Cup in Berlin. Former NCAA swimmer Caitlin Wheeler joins me now. Let me see if I've got this right, Caitlin. They have these swim meet. They have a special category for trans athletes, and nobody showed up. I think I've got that right. You tell me what that tells you.
Of course they failed to get entries in for the meet. What man wouldn't want to compete against other men when they compete in the women's sports and dominate? I mean, men have larger heart muscles, they have higher bone density, they have higher testosterone levels, giving them an advantage. Let's look at what happened in Maine. There was a 16-year-old male who was ranked 172nd in the men's and started competing in the women's and is now ranked 4th. This just shows that there is an unfair advantage here. You know, they're not here to make it fair. They're here to dominate. But
I mean, one of the solutions to this problem was that you have a special category where trans athletes compete amongst themselves. That doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's not going to be satisfactory. They don't want a third category. That's not going to satisfy what they're looking for. Men want to invade women's sports. They're erasing women and destroying women's sports. Having a third category isn't going to solve anything at all.
What is the solution?
The solution is what we've always been doing, having a men's and women's category. It's about calling out these fantasies and these delusions and not affirming them. We're doing the opposite of standing up for truth. If we're affirming fantasies and not standing up for what's right anymore, we should have men's and women's sports. We've always had them, and we've always had them for a reason ever since Title IX was in place.
So it's men swimming against men, women swimming against women, and no matter what you say you identify as, you're in that category or that one, and that's it. Yes?
That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see what happens at the Olympics next year in France.
We suggested the third category, the open category, to be nice, to be inclusive, to be fair. But that's not what they want. They don't care about fairness. They care about dominating, and they seek pleasure in doing so. They seek pleasure in not having to work anywhere near as hard as the women have to work, but yet still dominating, still coming out on top and basically being number one. They seek pleasure in that. Not only that, they get to go into the locker rooms. They get to go where they don't belong because of these silly rules. Because they are seen as women. If they identify as a woman, they are seen as women. And anyone who says otherwise, they're the ones who will be targeted. They are the ones who will be ostracized, criticized, and have things taken away from them, punished. You see what's happening in powerlifting, suspending female athletes, but simply saying that this isn't fair. We've seen what happened to Riley Gaines when she spoke out against Leah Thomas and the other female athletes. They were the ones who were told that they have the issue and that they should probably seek counselling for not being okay with this. If you don't like seeing male genitalia in your locker room, then you're the one with the problem. If you're out on the street and there's someone in a dark alley showing his genitalia, of course, by all means, call the police, but not in the locker room. Absolutely ridiculous. So rightly so, Martina Navratilova, who has spoken out about this from day one, has slammed the NCAA for allowing this to continue with this new, trans-identified male now breaking records. The butterfly record was broken recently by this person, who is set to be Leah Thomas 2.0. Tennis icon Martina Navratilova slammed mediocre biological males competing in women's sports on Tuesday, amidst a new backlash in NCAA Division III women's swimming. Women's sports is not the place for mediocre male athletes who compete as women, period. Navratilova, a 9-time Wimbledon champion, wrote in a tweet. After competing on the men's team for 3 years, Megan Cortez Fields, a transgender swimmer at Ramapo College in New Jersey, recently broke a women's school record at the Cougar Splash Invitational in Dallas, Pennsylvania. Cortez Fields secured first place in the 100-yard butterfly with a time of 57.22, setting a new record. The transgender athlete also won the 200-yard individual medley and placed second in the 200-yard butterfly, according to Fox News. Transgender swimmer at New Jersey College, Megan Cortez Fields, smashes women's 100-yard butterfly record after competing in men's team for 3 years. I will keep saying this over and over. This is wrong and completely unfair, and quite frankly, a mockery. Exactly. Women's sports, has a hard time as it is being taken seriously. Let's just be real. When it comes to the WNBA and, soccer, although soccer, a lot of progress has been made in soccer. But when it comes to certain, women's version of certain sports, women have worked hard for decades to be taken seriously. So you compete with men and then decide that you want to take your career up a notch, to say the least. But how is entering women's sports and using your unfair advantage that you will still possess, no matter how long you've been on hormones, I'm sorry, because we're seeing the evidence of that. You still possess an unfair advantage, regardless of the hormones you're taking or suppressing. So your other attributes, such as muscle mass, height, lung capacity, which is quite important in swimming. Because of your other attributes, you're still going to have an unfair advantage. This is destroying women's sports, whichever way you look at it.
Oh, does this sound fair? A biological male swimmer shattering a New Jersey college record, but only after switching from the men's team to the women's. Megan Cortez Fields swam on Ramapo College men's team for 3 years before moving to the girls' team this season as a senior. The school swim team recently congratulating the transgender athlete on social media for breaking the school record in the 100-yard butterfly, but later deleted the post, citing the need to, quote, protect their teammate from insulting comments. Now, Jessica, what's really amazing to me is that the left, the party of the Equal Rights Amendment and choice, is so willing to allow women to be suppressed, oppressed, and erased by men. Does that make sense to you?
No, I also don't feel that it's accurate. And I don't think that this is a position of the left. Over 70% of Americans don't think that on the competitive level that people who have transitioned, and we should be clear that the swimmer has met the NCAA's criteria in terms of estrogen. So the hormone therapy has gone through. But this is an area where there's vast agreement. It is so different from gender-affirming care for young kids. But I don't see this as a leftist policy. I just think it's insane.
It is a leftist policy, whether you want to admit it or not. Your side is for this. This absolutely is a leftist policy because conservatives are not for this. But I understand that even people on the left are against this because people are saying that, this is just common sense. We have categories in sports that have been there from the beginning of time, and the need for that doesn't just go away magically because you want to be you want to affirm somebody's gender or you want to be inclusive. But when it comes to the people in office, they're enabling this. And they're the politicians who are on the left. They're the politicians who sit there and tell you that you're a bigot if you're not for this. They're the ones who say they're going to fight for trans rights, in sports. They're the ones who affect our legislation, who want to make Title IX work against the very people it was set up to protect. So again, it is a leftist policy, but that doesn't necessarily mean it reflects all people who are on the left, all people who consider themselves leftists or liberals. So yes, I can agree with that. It's just common sense. Absolutely.
Jesse, is this a leftist policy?
Well, no, because now Emma and I are interested in it. We did some financial planning, and for Jesse Jr. to do a 4-year stint at university is going to cost about $450,000. So we're going to be transitioning Jesse right into the high school where he will be in the fall playing field hockey, swimming in the winter, and softball in the spring. 3-letter athlete. By identifying as a woman, he'll be going as Jessica. And then he will be getting a full ride to a Division I school where he's going to shatter every single female record, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it, Jessica. How dare you? Don't even start. Don't even start.
Okay, Dana. The left talks about fairness for all and everybody coming out equal, but this is about discrimination.
I think so. I mean, when you asked, is this unfair? I'm like, it's clearly unfair. It's outrageous. I also think it's completely uncomplicated. Like, I'm not going to talk all of these other words that people want to use about this. Like, this is not complicated for me. This is outrageous. And I cannot believe that there are so many women in power who either have been professional athletes who have made a gazillion dollars and they're fine, they're retired, and they were in women's sports and they were the pioneers in women's sports, and they will not stick up for these girls who are, their opportunities are being taken from them, money is being taken from them. They have decided just to talk about quiet quitting. That's exactly what these girls do. And imagine being the woman with the most power in the United States, Kamala Harris, the first woman vice president, and she will not say a word to stick up for these girls. I think it's appalling.
Yeah, they do the opposite. They stick up for the trans-identified males and tell the women that there's something wrong with them. The very people, who are in office are doing that. And these are the people who call themselves feminists. They will cry about, a male comedian making a sexist joke. They'll cry about that all day. But they've got no problem with men infiltrating and destroying women's sports, infiltrating their locker rooms. Got no problem with that, though.
We should put all guys on outnumbered. One guy surrounded by 4 trans guys.
Right.
How would you like that?
Okay, you're the one lucky guy.
Yeah. Last word, Brian.
My last word will be quick. I always say to myself, in complicated times in sports, how does cricket decide what to do? And I looked that up, and cricket banned all transgender women from playing international cricket. I think you just make it say, listen,
we're not doing this.
Yeah. It's very simple. However you were born, you can compete. We're just not going to count you. And then we're going to get first 4. And then the first woman comes in first. The first trans woman, the first trans man can do what he wants, but you're just not allowed to compete.
And Riley Gaines did actually address what people have been putting on my videos for a long time now. You women, you wanted this. You were co-signing this. And now you're facing the consequences. I get that in my comment section all the time. And it doesn't bother me because I was never for this. And, But there are some women who were for it. But now they're seeing the consequences, are dead against it. And that's okay too. At least they came to their senses. At least they are now admitting the reality of the situation rather than continuing to double down and act as if this is okay while calling themselves feminists.
I think people are really beginning to get fed up with this. I think initially, maybe 2 years ago, maybe we thought we could coexist and this could be something that we could allow trans women into our spaces because we could be inclusive. This would be something that worked. But now we're seeing, of course, that doesn't work. We're seeing this, again, being one-sided. We're seeing males infiltrate into women's sports and spaces and win and take away opportunities from women. And we're not seeing that the other way around. And so I think people are beginning to realize this. I think the tides are beginning to turn. I'm hopeful that more coaches will be outspoken, more parents. We need parents to defend their daughters and sons. More athletes will be willing to say how they feel. We need athletic directors. We need medical professionals to speak up and address the science behind it, how male puberty affects the body and the differences that it allows men to have in comparison to women. To say this isn't existing is to deny the facts in front of our faces. This is happening at all levels, all states, all sports, all ages. My experience is becoming less and less unique by the day.
So whatever your views are politically, whatever views you held previously, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to say, you know what, this has gone too far. And stand up for women's sports. Don't sit back and say nothing and allow women's sports to be destroyed before your very eyes. Anybody who has a daughter, anybody who's into sports, anybody who's into common sense and fairness should be speaking out against this. Just turn on the TV and take a look at the sports in front of you. There are categories, and the need for those categories are never going to go away. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.